In this edition of Air Force Television News, a new Chief Master Sergeant takes command of the enlisted corps. The youth of America, what the Air Force is doing to help construct the next generation. And a secret place that's a secret no more. Hello, I'm Staff Sergeant David Pullen. We begin this edition with perhaps the most important commodity in our society, the youth of America. The boys and the girls who, before we realize it, will be the men and the women guiding the country's destiny. When the Air Force came into existence half a century ago, the men and women who made up the service, for the most part, came from an age of family unity. America's youth were concerned only when they became adults, a time for the service to draw upon a population steeped in patriotism and family values. But as times change, so too does the makeup of America's youth. It's a different breed today, a difference that breeds change for the Air Force. And that's the subject of this edition's Eye on the Air Force. The challenge, how to keep hundreds of thousands of America's children entertained, interested, occupied, out of trouble. The Air Force bases worldwide face the question every day, and the men and women who make up the Air Force are working on and off base to find the answer. At Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi, the answer came amid pounding nails and flying sawdust.
They're building a child's dream. Freedom Park, a $100,000 self-help project designed by the children for the children. And the smallest helpers are the children themselves.
We need our youth entertained in a constructive way, not destructive. And so this whole playground structure was built to keep them entertained and keep them happy, and they're going to love it.
11,000 volunteers from the Air Force Base and the city of Columbus worked around the clock for 5 days and built a playground 1/3 the size of a football field.
This is so much more that offers the base community and the downtown community for the kids to come out, all ages. Even I would like to play on it, so all ages can definitely benefit from what's going to be out here.
The people involved in this project say it's a family effort, and this unique Columbus family saved the Air Force more than $200,000 in labor costs alone.
You know, I think I can sum this up in one word. It's outstanding. I mean, you know, you sit back and you take a group of people to come together and make something happen. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're making something happen.
It's said the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. Columbus is one Air Force base doing its part to help some kids grow up with the chance to dream and become leaders. Senior Airman Aaron Webb, Air Force News, Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi.
The youth of America are more than swings and monkey bars. The key to their future lies in the classroom, education. And keeping kids interested in something like math and science can be a tough job. But the Air National Guard is involved in a program that tries to motivate students through their fascination with aircraft. Tech Sergeant Chris Kelly and Senior Airman Brett Baker went to Minnesota to show how the Air Force goes to the classroom, how it's involved in education.
Propeller, you bet. That is our propeller.
This Air National Guard pilot is teaching these kids a little bit about flying. It's part of a program called Starbase, where students get a chance to visit special classrooms at 13 bases around the country. The goal? To get kids more interested in math and science, using airplanes and flying as a motivator.
We hope we're doing something that's really going to help them take more math classes, more science classes, and hopefully get them excited about those topics, and whether it be an airplane pilot or an engineer, whatever. We hope that what we do here is help them along that way.
Because now I'm going to lay the teachers help by getting kids away from their regular classrooms and textbooks.
And I think it's important because we do so much hands-on. I think that's what gets them. We do the hands-on activities. They're making an airplane. They're not reading about the airplane parts in a book. A pilot's actually coming out here and showing them their equipment that they use to fly. They're not looking at that in a video or a book. So the hands-on, I think, really gets them, and that's the way the students need to learn.
Well, I like learning new things here and having fun.
Using aircraft and flying as a motivator isn't just limited to academics. Senior Airman Brett Baker found that flying can help kids in another way as well.
This helicopter is on its way to a war, but this war is one that's been fought for the last 20 years. The scene of the battle on this day, Cedar Island Elementary School. The enemy is drugs. For 4 years, Tech Sergeant Kelly Lovely and a helicopter crew from the Minnesota Army Air Guard have been fighting the war. The objective, to warn kids about the danger of drugs.
You have to make the decision today and every day to never, ever, ever use an illegal drug. If you make the decision...
Throughout the school year, Sergeant Lovely works alongside the Minneapolis-St. Paul Police Department, trying to keep kids off drugs. And the dramatic arrival in a helicopter is one way of impressing the kids.
The helicopter is a real good tool. It really gets their attention, and there's some real good tie-ins with the decision-making and having a clean brain. Who knows what consequences are? What are they?
Things that happen as a result of your decision.
Okay, exactly. Very good definition. Things that happen as a result of your decision. That's kind of like...
What Sergeant Lovely is doing is another example of how the Air Force is tuned into the problems and solutions for young people.
We bring this huge helicopter into their school, landed in their playground or one of their ball fields, and we talk to them about making decisions about drugs. We come out in these fancy uniforms, and they're usually just enthralled with us.
Next time, Sergeant Lovely and her Army National Guard helicopter crew will visit another school as this decades-old war continues. It's still too early to tell whether the battle against drugs is being won. However, one thing's for sure, programs like this one are getting the message out. These kids know which side is the right side in the war on drugs. Senior Airman Brett Baker, Air Force News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
When Air Force Television News continues, hail to the Chief, the next Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
Chemistry class led me to a life of crime. I catch murderers, rapists, and thieves with a microscope. Help your daughter become a scientist. Instead of a tea set, get her a chemistry set. Look at the boring job I got from being a science nerd. Expect the best from a girl. That's what you'll get.
Your breath is as sweet as the morning dew.
Well, your breath smells like the bottom of a tar pit.
Your soft sighs caress me like the warm summer wind.
I feel like I'm sucking on an exhaust pipe.
Kiss me, you fool.
How about a hickey?
The Air Force has a new enlisted corps spokesman. The swearing-in of Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Eric Binkin came a day after the outgoing Chief, David Campanelli, retired. Staff Sergeant Jim DeMoss attended both ceremonies at Washington.
Chief Campanelli wanted his retirement ceremony to be remembered as an event that honored his family. Air Force leaders and the enlisted corps paid tribute to Chief Campanelli's 26 years of service in a ceremony at Bolling Air Force Base in the nation's capital. Air Force Chief of Staff General Ronald Fogelman used Chief Campanelli's wishes about his family to emphasize the importance of family in a military career.
As we maintain this pace in supporting the nation's goals, we must remember the needs of our service members and our families. That was the hallmark of the Campanelli service.
We do something not for ourselves, and that should never be the focus. We do things for generations of people yet to come. We build a bridge for other people.
A day later, the mantle was passed. Chief Eric Binkin was surrounded by his military family as well as his wife and children at a Pentagon ceremony as he was sworn in as the 12th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. Chief Binkin said he is proud to represent the enlisted men and women of the Air Force.
Johnny and I are looking forward to the challenge, and we look forward to serving with all of you, and I thank all of you for being here today. Thanks, sir.
Chief Binkin's top priority talking to the people he represents, the enlisted corps. Staff Sergeant Jim DeMoss, Air Force News, Washington.
The Air Force has lost another top enlisted man. Former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Arthur Andrews, died in a Marietta, Georgia hospital from complications following heart bypass surgery. He served as the 7th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force from August of '81 until his retirement in July of '83. He is the second top chief to pass away. He was 62 years old. About 7,000 people stationed in the Republic of Korea are going to have to dig deeper when they buy something. That number is going to lose their cost of living allowance. The COLA was scheduled to end November 1st for those stationed at Osan and Kunsan air bases. The Air Force appealed and the Defense Department delayed the cut. The allowance will be cut in half in mid-November paychecks, then eliminated entirely in January. The cut means that, on average, people at Osan will lose $36 a month and people at Kunsan $31 a month. COLA gives people enough money to buy the same goods and services overseas they could buy stateside. Members of the military who use tobacco products are paying more for the privilege. Effective November 1st, prices at commissaries increased as much as 30%. Nationwide, the price of a carton of brand name cigarettes now costs $15.50. The previous price was $11.50. Civilian store prices on average cost $17.50 a carton. The reason for the increase? Another step by the military to discourage the use of tobacco products. The price increase puts commissary tobacco products in line with the prices at base exchanges. Those participating in the Veterans Educational Assistance Program, or VEAP, can soon enroll in the more lucrative Montgomery GI Bill. Service members who entered the military from 1977 to '85 and enrolled in VEAP contributed up to $2,700 for a total return of $8,100. Well, since 1985, the Montgomery GI Bill paid enrollees almost $15,000 for a contribution of only $1,200. The DoD, Veterans Affairs, and service officials are deciding how to make the transition between the two educational programs. It should be in place by the beginning of the year. Humanitarian missions are nothing new to the Air Force. Since the end of the Cold War, foreign nations have increasingly turned to the United States for help. The country of Ecuador is the latest. When a civilian cargo plane crashed into a remote village, the Air Force responded. Senior Airman Aaron Webb says a medical team from Wilford Hall Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas, was busy saving lives less than 24 hours after the crash.
For the people of Manta, Ecuador, it was a night they will always remember. 22 people dead, more than 60 injured, some of those badly burned when a cargo plane slammed into a group of homes. 25 physicians, nurses, and medical technicians from Wilford Hall were on the ground treating victims less than 24 hours after the tragedy.
Give me some vital signs, please, somebody.
Returning to the United States just days later with 5 critically burned patients.
This mission begins to prove more definitively our ability to mobilize rapidly and go with these very mobile modular teams anywhere in the world to assist in whatever peacetime or wartime operations where we are needed for medical support.
Got it? I haven't been able to find.
The 5 burn victims were taken to Herman Hospital in Houston, Texas for further treatment. The 4-day mission to Ecuador was the first and the largest such medical response of its kind by the staff of Wilford Hall.
All the hospitals that we were involved with were charity hospitals, so everything done there was done with gifts from the community, or physicians that had made money in private practice would donate time and money.
The whole time we were there, I felt like there was just a sense of gratitude, a sense that they really, really wanted us there.
Missions like the one to the Ecuadorian village are becoming more commonplace for the Air Force. Missions that prove firsthand the worth of rapid response medical teams like the one at Wilford Hall. Senior Airman Aaron Webb, Air Force News, Houston, Texas.
It's been called the final frontier, but that frontier is getting smaller all the time. In the next 2 years, both the U.S. and Russia will launch unmanned missions to Mars. For the military, the space frontier is changing the way the country thinks about its national defense. And the Air Force agency in charge of that aspect of defense has a new man at the top. Senior Airman Brett Baker talked to the commander of the U.S. Space Command, the Air Force Space Command, and NORAD. He's General Howell Estes.
Since the Apollo moon landings, the public's interest in space has waned. That may be true for the civilian population, but for the military, it's just the opposite. Every day, new technologies surface that marry national defense with the use of space. And although he's understandably biased, the commander of America's Space Commands firmly believes the use of space will continue to grow.
From that respect, with things that'll happen in space to make life better here on Earth, the horizons are limitless, I think, and as technology allows, we'll take full advantage of that.
Every year there seems to be a new catchphrase. This year, it's information warfare, an area of special interest to General Estes.
I'm interested in ensuring that I can prevent the flow of information through the systems that we have available to us, but I'm even more interested because I am so heavily dependent on information flow to protect the sources of information that I have.
The general hopes that soon, space will be on a par with the more traditional arenas of warfighting.
This is the objective, is to get this integrated nature of not only air, land, and sea from our joint warfighting perspective, but to put space into that grouping as well as the fourth medium.
General Estes has been on the job for only a short time, but the one thing he emphasizes to the people in his command, getting the job done at all costs, is not the way to do business.
If we've given you a mismatch between the missions we've asked you to do and the resources to do them, you've got to come back and tell me. Don't sit there and keep trying to milk this thing to the point where you can't do any of it right. We've made that mistake in the past. We're not going to make it now.
So, just as people like Columbus and LaSalle explored the Earth, the Air Force will continue doing the same thing in the new frontier, protecting and expanding the national defense. Senior Airman Brett Baker, Air Force News, Peterson Air Force Base, Colorado.
When we come back, a dream come true for a very special young man.
If it's going to happen for you, it's because you make it happen.
Radio check, 123 666, 7 miles northeast with the cardiac.
The answer could be an Air Force ROTC scholarship. You'll get an education and the training to become an Air Force officer. With an Air Force ROTC scholarship, you can go as far as your talent and drive take you. Aim high, Air Force.
Let's go! Go for it! Yes! All right! All right, let's go!
Speeding can give you a ride you'll never forget.
Another step has been taken by NATO and the former Warsaw Pact countries to help maintain peace. Called the Open Skies Treaty, the countries affected by the pact are now able to observe military activities without any aircraft restrictions. Staff Sergeant Clay Cogsdill watched the first trial run of the treaty in Budapest, Hungary.
The Air Force brought an OC-135B observation aircraft to Tokol Air Base in Hungary for the trial flight of the Open Skies Treaty. 27 countries have signed the treaty, but 3 countries have yet to ratify the agreement. They are Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. The trial flight allowed representatives from 12 different nations to get a closer, reassuring look at how the program will work.
We're hopeful that our bringing the aircraft here and showing them, along with these other countries that are represented here, showing them the aircraft, showing the benign character of the aircraft, that they will gain more confidence in our ability to conducting a mission strictly by the treaty guidelines.
For this demonstration, the aircraft and flight crew came from Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. The NCOs and officers who operate the high-tech sensors came from the On-Site Inspection Agency in Washington, D.C.
And that's kind of a unique
situation, but because this mission is connected with the on-site inspection agency, the mission crew has to be stationed out of Washington, D.C., co-located with the rest of OSIA.
Once the agreement goes into effect, it will offer NATO and the former Warsaw Pact countries a new sense of security. The last three countries, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, are expected to ratify the Open Skies Treaty early next year. Sergeant Clay Cogstill, Air Force News, Tokol Air Base, Hungary.
A squadron in Norway is one of the best-kept secrets in the Air Force. It's a squadron that supports U.S. personnel assigned to a nearby NATO headquarters. As Staff Sergeant Chris Wertner found out, it's an assignment that closely resembles a picture postcard.
Location is one reason airmen want assignments to a particular base, or want to avoid it. The biggest misconception about an assignment to Stavanger, Norway is
that it's going to be like the Arctic and they're going to see a lot of seals and bear and that type of thing.
I would be shoveling snow for 365 days out of the year.
Finance Sergeant Johnson. Hey, how you doing?
About 38 personnel specialists support 300 people, primarily U.S. military and their families. Airmen take on more responsibility than at a larger base, and they also learn more.
My job now at this base has probably improved tenfold, so I feel I'm going to go back to the States a much better NCO.
Stavanger's small size has another advantage.
It's a team here. Everyone pitches in.
Usually everyone comes to the aid of the other person.
People of the 426 like their host country and their neighbors.
This is really a nice place to live when you have children, small children.
I love Norway. The people and the culture are fascinating and incredible.
And as for the snow,
in reality, the snowfall is little here.
And I found out that there is not as much snow as I thought that there would be.
Stavanger, Norway, not what its people expected, and more than they'd hoped for. Sergeant Chris Wertner, Air Force News, Stavanger.
This is probably the hidden secret in the Air Force.
Norway.
Another one of the Air Force's best-kept secrets is located in Florida, and it saves millions of dollars every year, not on the air or even on the ground, but in the water. Staff Sergeant Eric Whitmore caught up with that secret, an Air Force boat.
The Air Force on the deep blue sea. It may seem unusual, but it's a perfectly normal sight off the coast of Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. This 120-foot boat was built for one purpose, to recover remote-controlled drones. The drones are launched at Tyndall and shot down by students at the Base Weapons Training Center. The Air Force saves a lot of money by recovering drones. It only takes about 2 recovered drones to pay for an entire year of operating the boats. Last year, they recovered about 75 drones. The boat is operated by contractors who also have the job of clearing the range before drones are launched.
We also own 2 25-foot Boston whalers, which cover an area inside a bay just adjacent to the launch facility. And they clear the area inside the bay where the water is shallower and these larger boats can't get in there.
Back at the dock, after the drone is recovered, it's delivered to another base agency, where it's repaired and cleaned to remove salt water. Then the whole process is repeated. It's then ready to fly, get shot down again, and recovered again. And it all winds up saving the Air Force millions in the process. Staff Sergeant Eric Whitmore, Air Force News, Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida.
Finally, rubbing shoulders with Air Force pilots, sitting in the cockpit of a jet. It's a dream of youth and imagination. It's a dream that can and does come true at Randolph Air Force Base in Texas. Tech Sergeant Chris Kelly has the story of a program called Pilot for a Day, a program that gives hope to some youngsters who are fighting for their lives.
12th Flying Training Wing.
His name is Daniel Goldsmith, and today he's an Air Force pilot.
Hey, we got some other stuff for you.
He's getting this royal treatment because his life and the lives of his family have been turned upside down by a disease called leukemia.
Let's go for a ride, you and me.
Daniel's the latest of dozens of kids with potentially fatal diseases to become a pilot for a day. It's a program started by Captain Rory Blackburn, who came to Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio because his wife needed cancer treatment at nearby Wilford Hall Medical Center. During trips to the hospital with his wife, Captain Blackburn noticed how many kids there were with cancer and other life-threatening illnesses. With a lot of help from pilots in his squadron and others at Randolph, these kids' dreams are coming true.
These kids in the hospitals with the catastrophic diseases are basically been cheated out of a lot. I mean, and they're going to lose out on a lot. And by the Pilot for a Day program, just a short period of time, we can give them something back that, some bragging rights. They're able to do something no one else, very, very few children have an opportunity to do.
Who's got the keys?
Check your pockets.
Come on up there.
It's been Daniel's dream to become a fighter pilot. Deciding between the Air Force and Navy, though, can be a hard choice for a future aviator.
Maybe an Air Force. Haven't decided yet.
But when he got his official flyer's wings, the choice was clear.
What's you like, Navy or Air Force?
Air Force.
You do?
He was so excited to get to come. In fact, this morning waking up, he was so excited he almost had himself upset. His stomach was, but he loves it. He's been looking forward to it ever since they told us a couple of weeks ago. It's really been a boost to his morale.
See it in his eyes. They're just sparkling.
And we try to make them feel very special. We try to really make it a day for them and make them feel very special, to put a smile on their face. And not only that day, but something that will last in their hearts and minds for a very long time, and that they can dwell on it and remember back to their day here, that they are special to a lot of guys here.
Departure, like see all four of them getting together, they'll slowly join up on departure.
This Pilot for a Day, this young man who dreams of being a fighter pilot, still needs to win his battle with leukemia. But with some new friends in the Air Force and a lot of luck, he'll beat leukemia, and his dream just may come true.
You ready to see this big one over here?
Tech Sergeant Chris Kelly.
This is Daniel Goldsmith.
Air Force News.
He's our pilot for the day.
Randolph Air Force Base, Texas.
Welcome aboard.
For more information on the Pilot for a Day program, contact the Randolph Air Force Base Public Affairs Office. And that'll do it for this edition of Air Force Television News. I'm Staff Sergeant David Pullen. Thanks for watching.
Tower Control, 990, cleared for takeoff.